Mixing all music genres. WNB1 Radio, your urban music link.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Mags in the Morning with my co-host is J9,
Hey.
and we have a special guest on air today. It is Ron Barboza. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for
So
coming in.
what we're going to do is we're going to be highlighting a special event that's going to be taking place this upcoming Monday. That is Monday, January 15th. It is all being brought to you by the Zyterian Performing Arts Center. They invite you to come to the HBCU College Fair, and it's happening Monday, January 15th at the Andre McCoy Recreation Center. And in lieu of that, we have Ron here, who's going to enlighten us with his experience that he had while attending an HBCU in the 1960s.
1960s, yes. What
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So yes. So welcome to WMB1 Radio, Ron. And I don't know if you knew. Well, actually, you did know because we've spoken before. But a lot of people are just finding out that we have a radio station here, internet radio station.
hmm
And we like the internet better because it reaches the world.
yeah.
Where you're on a dial, you're kind of restricted to a certain area, but with the internet, we reach all across every region as so long as you have internet. You can get us in. We have a mobile app which you can download and you can listen to us anytime. We're a radio station that is on 24 hours, 7 days a week, and we specialize in um, stuff like this. We love highlighting people who are in our community,
Mm,
and we like hearing their stories. All right. So this is what brings us here today.
yes.
So tell us about first we can talk about the event that's going to be going on Monday.
Um, I'd like to welcome everyone to the event. As Brian mentioned, it's going to be on Monday, on Martin Luther King Day. It'll be at the Andre McCoy Center, and it's free to the public. So even if you're not going to college, even if you're an adult, you're welcome to come. They're going to have some pizza on that day. And the person that's involved in this is Blair Taylor.
We're very familiar with Blair.
Okay.
Love
She's our
her.
pal. She's our pal.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
we hope that there's a good crowd there. And there's at least 12 individuals that have attended historically black colleges and universities. Some of them I'll meet for the first time. Um, so there's actually 107 black colleges in the United States. I think Texas has the most.
Texas?
Really?
Texas has 9. And in terms of the location, where I went to school is Morgan State College. It's Morgan State University now. It was a college when I went. It's located in what we used to call the Mason-Dixon line, below the Mason-Dixon line. So it's in Baltimore, Maryland. But I believe that the closest one to us is probably Elizabeth City, which is in New
New
Jersey.
Jersey, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
So most of the black colleges are in the South,
South, down
and the
south.
West.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So can you tell us about your experience? I know for just the college in general, for a lot of people, a lot of, I shouldn't say people, I should say young adults, kids. It's for some it's they can't wait. For others, it's frightening. Especially if you're going miles and miles away. And I need to ask you, the HBCU that you went to, before going to that school, were you used to traveling out of the city?
I was used to traveling because my family, we traveled a lot during the summer months. My parents took us on vacations. We went to Niagara Falls. We went to New York quite a few times. So I was used to traveling, but it was a different experience going to college. And I think for those people that are seniors in high school and that are thinking about college, you do a lot of growing up once you leave home. It's a place that you mature and you find out a lot about yourself. So I think that a college like Morgan State, which was completely new, and when we went there, it was the very first time that I visited a college. I had never stepped foot on a college before.
Really?
This is the 1960s, so I'm the first in my family to go to college. This is 1965 when I graduated from high school and then left for Morgan. But it's kind of an interesting story how I found out about Morgan. There was a bookstore on Union Street down the street here. A Greek bookstore was called, and they sold newspapers and magazines. And they sold the Afro American, which is a black newspaper, in that bookstore. I think it came out twice a week. And my mother's mother, she had a nickname. They called her Mimi DeCharge. She used to play the numbers, which was popular in those days. A lot of people played the numbers. And on this newspaper, on the second or third page of the newspaper, they had a cartoon character, and they had bubbles coming out of his mouth, and they had numbers on it. So she would give me money. I think it cost 15 cents at the time. I would go up to the newsstand and bring the newspaper to her, and she would play some of the numbers. She was also pretty good at playing numbers because she won quite a few times. And she was only interested in that page. So I was an athlete in high school, and track and field was my sport. So I kept the second part of the newspaper, the second section, which was the sports section. And that's how I really found out about Morgan. They had a pretty good track team. They had an Olympic champ in 1952, a guy named George Roden, who won the 400 meters and came in second. They won the mile relay as well. So Morgan was well known for its track team, and that's how I found out about it.
So as we're looking at the screen, that's the fine young gentleman right up there, fourth from the last. I can see the Barboza, the strong genes, the Barbozas that they have. But yes, so that is him, freshman track team, and so at that time, you ran according to your class, correct?
Well, not always, because in some of the big meets, we ran as a freshman team. They had a varsity team as well. This particular photograph, we were running in the Penn relays. This was taken at the school itself. This was part of the mile relay team. They used to call it the mile relay in those days. Now it's 400. It's still called the mile relay, but each person runs 400 meters, and back then it was 440 yards. But we were in some of the other meets. We ran in Quantico, Virginia. They had the Quantico relays. So we would be running, if you were fast enough or you could jump far enough, you were in the open division. But this particular team, I don't know if you're familiar with the Penn Relays, but the Penn Relays is a big carnival in Philadelphia. It's run at Franklin Field. And the years that I was running in the 60s, the tracks were cinder tracks, just like in the Bedford High, we had a cinder track back then. Now they have a composition track. So, and I ran 4 years at Morgan.
4 years. And I might add, I know for some time you had was it the triple jump record?
The long jump record.
Long jump record.
Yeah.
How long
What
did
was
that?
that?
How long did that record last?
It lasted 42 years.
42
What?
years.
Wow.
I said it in 1965.
That's amazing.
22 feet 6 3/4, and then a fourth cousin or third cousin of mine, Jeffrey Rose, broke it 42 years later.
Wow.
42 years.
42 years.
That's a long
That's a
time.
record. You
That's a
you
long
kept
time.
it. Yes.
Yes,
Thank
that's a great accomplishment.
Close.
So yeah, so in regards to HBCU life, when you say you grow up fast, we know that once you go away, there's no mom and dad to
Mhm.
get you out of things that they would normally get you.
Mhm.
So it causes you to obviously to mature faster,
That's right.
and to make adult decisions as you go and as you do things. How was that? How was that for you? Especially being miles and miles away.
Yeah.
Yes.
You become self-sufficient. You begin to mature. You begin to learn a lot. I think my college years were very informative for me. I think it built me as to who I am today. Um, Morgan being a historically black college, I didn't know much about historically black colleges at the time because today you have the internet, but back then there was very little information. Even in magazines, there was nothing in the movies at all. Um, and you could maybe find something in Ebony magazine about historically black colleges.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to mention is that during my schooling years in the 50s and the 60s uh, in the city of New Bedford, there were very few teachers of color. And when we lived in the south end of the city, then we moved to the north end when they built Brickenwood. I think it was around 1950, 52, when we were the first black family to move into Brickenwood. And we went to Mount Pleasant School, where there were hardly any blacks or people of color. The Ribeiro family, Ribs Ribeiro, I don't know if you know Ribs.
Yep.
They moved in, I think, the day after we did, so they were at Mount Pleasant as well. We were there about less than 2 years, and then we moved back to the South End. Um, One of the things that I want to mention is that my father was a Fuller Brush man. I don't know if a lot of people know about Fuller
I
Brush.
know. My mother made me well aware.
Yeah.
Full of brush man. Full of brush man.
So it was quite a distance for him to travel to his section where he would sell. So I think that's the reason why we moved back to the South End and we moved back to South Water Street. But I was in the third grade in Mount Pleasant School, and there was a new teacher, and it was Mrs. Xavier. It was Reverend Xavier's wife.
Yes.
She was a third grade teacher. I had her for about a half a year. And then when we moved to the South End, I went to Christian Avenue School. But she was the first teacher of color that I remember in the school system. When I moved from Christian Avenue School to Donegay School, I had a reading teacher, which was Herb Waters' mother. I don't know if you knew her, but she traveled from school to school and taught reading. People that needed help in reading. So those are the only in those elementary school grades, the only persons of color that I ran into. The year that I left Donegay to go to Roosevelt, Eleanor Pont started teaching, and she taught maybe 1 year at the Donegay School. And then in the high school, and we'll show a picture of Miss Harper later, there were only a couple on the secondary school level, which is Roosevelt, Keith, the Mandan, and the Bedford High, there were only a couple of teachers. One of them was Walter Bonner, and Walter Bonner graduated from Lincoln University. I didn't know it at the time, but he was the head of the English department, and probably the first coach of color at the high school in the history of the high school. He coached tennis at the time. And then there was Miss Harper. She was a typing teacher at the old high school. And Henry Barrows, who taught drafting at Roosevelt. And when I started teaching, those three people were the only people of color when I started in 1969. So not seeing someone like me in positions made me think about going into the teaching profession. And where I was an athlete, I wanted to run track at college. It was a dream to go to the 1968 Olympics, or go to the Olympics, I should say. And I would have, if I was good enough, that would have been the Olympics to attend. The 68 Olympics was an important Olympic game because there was a protest during the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. John Carlos and Tommy Smith, they did the Black Power salute. And it's interesting because in the years that I ran at Morgan in the Quantico relays, I ran against John Carlos in the leg of the relay. I didn't know him at the time. And one of the athletes in the 68 Olympics was Bob Beamon. Bob Beamon was a long jumper, and he jumped 29 feet, 2.5 inches in the Olympics. No one had reached 28 feet, and he jumped.
He suppressed 29.
Wow.
Out to 29. It's considered at the time the greatest feat in track and field history. Well, I jumped against him in Quantico as well. He was at an HBCU in the South. I don't remember which one. And then he transferred, I believe, to Texas of El Paso or San Jose. And then both of these guys went to the Olympics in 1968. I guess one of the things in attending an HBCU is that you learn about your culture. You learn about Black culture. And when I think about my high school years or even the elementary school, we didn't deal with Black culture at all, or Black history. And during the 60s is the civil rights movement, and that was going on. And the phrase Black is beautiful and Black power came out during the time that I was in college. The Afro became popular as well. And I remember when I started teaching, I had this big Afro and I had these sideburns, and it was something else. In college, when I first went to college and delving into this, a life that I didn't know about before. And one of the things is that the homecoming, we never had a homecoming in New Bedford. So it was for the first time seeing homecoming, and where former graduates of Morgan would come. It was my introduction to fraternities and sororities and stepping and line dancing or lines. It was eye-opening. And I can remember for the first time in that first homecoming, I think homecoming might have been in October of that year, where all of these people would come onto the campus, and you'd see sororities where women would put their pocketbooks or books in the middle of a circle, and then they would form a circle around and begin to chant. And there was a number of what they call the Divine Nine at Morgan. So And I can remember one of I don't remember if it was Delta or AKA. One of them had pink, the color pink, and in the cafeteria, they would come in with flower pots, the pink flower pots, and they would do some steps and stuff. It was really cool. It
Yeah.
was really cool. So,
The experience there
yeah.
and the importance of education in the African American
Yeah.
community too.
Another thing too, we had a professor, a guy named Benjamin Quarles, and he wrote a book about African American history, and he became pretty famous. And this is the time that African American history was really starting in publications. So it was interesting because even I think when we go back to one of the photos where I'm sitting, um, there was a statue of Frederick Douglass
Mm.
right near there, and I didn't even know about Frederick Douglass, and I didn't know that he he lived in New Bedford.
Yes.
I didn't find this out until much later. So that was eye-opening for me to learn about Frederick Douglass, to have that statue at Morgan, which still exists there. Um,
In the history and the roots
Yeah.
here, right in New
Absolutely.
Bedford. Mhm.
I think another thing that I wanted to mention is that when I arrived at Morgan, and there's these rituals that happen in a lot of HBCUs. Um, One of the things we did is we went to the stadium, and I can remember in the evening lighting a candle, and we all had to walk around the track without the candle blowing out. And it was sort of like if you could do that, you knew you were going to graduate. This was
Yeah.
the belief at that time. And I remember the dean talking to the whole freshman class. Um, and in the auditorium, he told us to shake hands with the person on your left and to shake hands with the person on your right. And he said, in 4 years, only one of you are going to graduate. And I remember the two that were sitting on either side of me, and they didn't graduate. But it's interesting that it was, he said that, but then I talked to my daughter who went to Bennett College. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's HBCU. There's only two HBCUs that are entirely women, Bennett and Spelman. And she told me they did the same thing, but the president of the college said, um, you want to help the person on your left and to make sure that they will graduate,
Mm.
both of the people.
Yeah.
So, which was an interesting twist.
Take twist to it. Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Since my name is Barboza, um, uh, a lot of people were fascinated, and they would ask me, "Where did you get that name, Barboza?" And for 4 years in college, hardly anyone called me Ron or Ronnie. Um, they always called me Barboza.
Last name.
And I would begin to tell them about my heritage.
Hmm.
And I thought that I knew quite a bit about Cape Verde at the time. But as I explained things to them about being Cape Verdean and where the islands were and so forth, I realized that I didn't know enough. And it was fascinating because in the cafeteria, I'd be sitting, eating on a table, and a lot of people gather around, and they say, listen to this story about Cape Verdeans. And I would do this studying because there was hardly anything written about Cape Verde at the time. I
Mhm.
remember going to encyclopedias. We didn't have the internet, Britannica, World Book, and Cape Verde wasn't even in there.
Yeah.
Um, so it was hard to find information, but it started me on that path to find out years later when I graduated from college and began teaching. I've made 18 trips to Cape Verde, and I've been working on a number of books about Cape Verde. But I would tell some people in at Morgan some words in Creole, um, and the words that I knew,
Mm-hmm.
and it became a good thing, you know. Yeah, I would tell them about Manchoop or Kachupa,
Yeah.
uh, things that would happen in New Bedford, you know. So
Yeah, it's cultural. When you go, um I was explaining to her that um when I was going to high school, you had talked about um um Black history. So Miss Purcell everybody knows Miss Purcell.
yeah,
She taught Black history. And my first dealings with HBCUs was, she said, Brian, I think you would be a perfect candidate to go to an HBCU. I'm like, what's an HBCU? She
Yeah.
said, historically Black colleges and universities. And she slid me a pamphlet, and it had all the HBCUs on it. So that was my first interaction. And then lo and behold, a year later, School Days came out.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, that
Everybody.
really put HBCUs on the map then.
right.
So that's late 80s. We're talking 1987, 1986. Um, but I was telling her that I had a friend that used to come down, and his dad lived in Florida, his mom lived out here, and um, he was going to Howard University. And I said, he's like, hey, you should come down. He played for the football team. He said, you should come down and, check it out. He's like, you'll love it. And I ended up going down in 92 and 93. And the words that I used, I didn't even realize it when I told her. I said, a different world.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the show, a
The show,
different
A
yeah.
different
world,
world.
right?
Yeah.
I said it was a different world. It was unlike anything that I've ever seen or witnessed before.
Mm-hmm.
With the fraternities, with the step in, with the everything. It was just so close knit. And I took to it right away. I'm like, wow. And then when I came back, of course, I had to share all the pictures and all the
Right.
events and everything. So when I came back, I ended up getting three other friends to go with me in 93. And I said, you there's no words that I can tell you. You just have to go and witness it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures did no justice, the videos did no justice. You had to have been in that environment. um, so we went to Piedmont Park, in Atlanta. Huge. And they had all the fraternities there. They had step-in shows, concerts. It was
It's
and
beautiful, right?
yes, and
Yeah.
it
There's
went on.
nothing like
It
it.
started at 12 and ended at 8 at night. And it was just a lot of unity, a lot of positive
Mm-hmm.
things. And like I said, I told them, I said, there's only so much explaining I can do. You have to be there and witness it yourself. So when they went in 93, sure enough, they're like, yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. But it was definitely it was mind blowing. It was.
Culture,
Yes.
roots. Like,
Yes.
how can you not? Everything or different colleges may be straying or pulling you away from your actual culture and knowing more about yourself. So, being in that space, how can you not just feel like comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Right when you're there.
And one of the nice things about the HBCUs is that they're not oversized schools. When I was at Morgan, there was the student enrollment was 3,000.
That's small.
So it was about the size of New Bedford High.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
So you get to know everybody,
Mhm.
and you get to enjoy things with people. Some of the large campuses that Ohio State,
Oh, jeez.
because I had Jesse Owens was one of my idols, a track star in the 1936 Olympics, and I first wanted to go to Ohio State. That was one of the places that I wanted to go to, but I'm so glad that I went to an HBCU
Mhm.
because I think the growth of being by yourself, experiencing things in the Black culture,
Yeah.
and learning more about my own culture. When I say my own culture, I meant Cape Verdeans, because my culture is Black as well.
Mhm.
And it's, as you said, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
It is an experience that like I say, I talk about it now, and I still have that feeling of being there, being surrounded by, thousands of people. And as you know, you had mentioned it, Spelman was right across the street.
Yeah.
And
Oh boy,
yeah,
here we
Spelman was
go.
right
Here
across
we
the street.
go.
So you had an all, you had a university, then you had an all girls university right across the street. Um, and they just would like come together. And it was all good, everything was great. But it was, like I said, it was totally different. Um, uh, like I said, words just they
If
did no justice.
if if there is individuals that are thinking about an HBCU, if it's possible to visit them, like as you did,
Mhm.
to go down and see what life is like, see what the campus is like, that would be the one of the best things if you're able to do
A
it.
sticking point, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So just think about it, right? You had mentioned that you didn't know anything about the HBCUs. You had to find out through, as luck would have it, through a magazine.
Yeah.
In the 80s, in the late 80s, there was little to no information about it as well.
Yeah.
And we talk about going and visiting schools. That's the norm now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the norm now. You can go and take your child on a weekend and bring them to go see a school.
Mhm.
But back in the, I would say probably until the mid 90s, that's when it became, a part of, we're going to go visit the
College
school.
experience,
Yeah, the college
visiting,
experience.
and yeah.
Yeah, but up until then, no, it just was, you would apply to a college that you thought you may like going to for whatever you were going there for. Um, you did a little bit of research on the application, because you got to remember back then there was no internet either.
Mm-mm. No,
There was
no
no internet
dial-up,
either.
AOL.
So I remember going to SMU and going and looking up some universities, on some of the books that they had there. But there was, it wasn't like it is today. I mean, at a touch of a button, you can do a virtual tour of a university.
Mhm.
It's so much different. But as you were saying, if there are kids out there, parents who are out there watching now, and they would like to get their kids to go to any HBCUs, it's so easy now.
Yeah.
Literally, they have all the groups and stuff, sign-ups, registration for visiting weeks and all that. It's
Well,
it's literally like going on a vacation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
hopefully this affair that we're going to have on Monday, people will get a chance to talk to some of the people that have been alumni of these HBCUs and learn more about it.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. There's been quite a few people from the area that that have gone to HBCUs. Like when I think back, I was thinking this morning, it was 59 years ago when I went to Morgan, and 55 years ago when I graduated. It's a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I remember my daughter, Barika, she graduated from Bennett College. And I remember going to her graduation, I think it was the year 2000. And there were a couple of, I think there were like 10 women that were in the front row. And they introduced them. They were there for their 50th anniversary of
Wow.
graduation.
Wow.
And I was stunned because they all looked really, they called Bennett Bells.
Yes.
Bet.
Oh, you didn't see it's written up
Yeah.
there. We had a comment.
So if you look up there, there was people commenting, and so Scotty Never said Bennett Bells.
Yeah.
Bennett Bells.
Yeah. So I was impressed to see these women. They said 50 years later, and I'm thinking, I wonder would it be 50 years later for me? And now I'm beyond 50 years. And I wanted to attend my 50th anniversary, but I ended up going to Cape Verde to photograph, so I missed it. And I've been to a couple of. I think the 20th I went down as well, my wife and I, and it was, and to see the people that I graduated and went to school with
Hmm.
was really something.
So more
Great.
on the comments you have Bella DeSanto. She's saying she's Cape Verdean from San Vicente. She's commenting it up there. I don't know if you know her, Bella DeSantos.
Bella
Uh,
Descent, I think I know.
Yes, she's saying that she's Cape Verdean and she's from San Vicente.
San
Yep.
Vicente, okay.
You got also someone else that just commented, Corey Richardson. He's saying, "Great to hear you speak, Cuzzo."
Mhm.
So this is what I was talking about when we got you signed into your Facebook. Everybody could share the experience with you,
Yes.
and it's all your friends.
You know, one of the things you mentioned about not being a radio station where you have a dial,
Yes,
and now you reach across the world on the
Mhm.
internet, which is really nice because people in Cape Verde or people that are Cape Verdean or in Luxembourg or some other place, they'll be able to listen to this.
yes, freely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really,
So
um, the power of internet is unlimited.
Mhm.
As so long as you have internet, you can connect to our mobile devices, and and that's a great thing about it. It's mobile. You can walk with it right in your hand.
you
You
know,
can plug it into your vehicle,
yeah.
listen to it. Whereas you're restricted um, with a dial because as soon as you like, say for instance, as soon as you get to Rhode Island,
Out of range, yeah.
out of range.
Yeah.
This goes everywhere. It's funny that you should say that. So I can monitor who's listening. I can see in real time who's listening, what countries are listening. And about 2 weeks ago, I did have someone from Cape Verde listen.
Yeah, is that right?
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're gonna
I
have more, I think.
yeah, I'm sure.
We gotta pull
I'm
his
sure,
mic up a little bit.
I'll have people I'll have people listening from across the globe, and it's good because you might just happen to stumble upon it. The internet radio station is registered. My server is actually out of England, so what happens is the signal goes there, it bounces back. But I'm registered all throughout, basically all throughout Europe. So there's a lot of places out there that I'll be, I'll look and I'm like, oh, this, someone's listening in Italy, someone's listening here. It's all over the place. It's interesting.
You know, one of the things I wanted to mention about music, because in the 50s and the early 60s in New Bedford here, you didn't get a lot of black music on the radios. And there was only a couple of stations back then. And it wasn't until like when Motown came out in the early 60s that you began to hear black music in New Bedford. There was some black music. I'm talking about rock and roll and rhythm and blues, because there was jazz. I know that existed in before. But when I went to Morgan, I don't even remember the name of the station, but the music was unbelievable for me. And I could remember I had a transistor radio, and I would be listening all night to music.
Yeah.
I think Al Green is about my age. I think he was out at the time, and he had some songs, but songs that you normally wouldn't hear. I remember that James Brown, um, I think he might have been around 1963 or so, and they didn't play any of his records here. And it wasn't until much later, I don't know if it was 68 or 60 something, that they began to play James Brown records. And I even remember Ray Charles, he had a record, What I Say, and they banned it on the radio up here. When I don't
Really?
remember what year it was, but it was early on, and then they brought it back later. But there's a group. I'm trying to think of the group that was made up of Cape Verdeans in 1957. John Sylvia and his wife. and there was a song called Happy, Happy Birthday Baby. She's the first Cape Verdean to sell 1 million records.
Wow.
And this is in 1957. She's passed away, and he just passed away. But I did a videotape and did some research on him. But in those years, in the 60s, you didn't have women as DJs.
Mm.
No.
And when I went to Baltimore, it was the first time I heard a woman DJ. And then it became popular. Even in men's clothing stores, women didn't work in those stores back then. And when I graduated from college, I remember going to DC and purchasing a suit. It was a Ralph Lauren suit. And there was a woman that worked in this store called Bridges. And there was only 5 of these suits made because he had just come out with his polo line. I still have the suit. It can't fit in.
Yo.
That
Classic.
Another thing about Baltimore is Motown, which was really popular in the 60s, they had proving grounds. They would release a record and they'd test it out in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, and Detroit. And if it made it in those places, they knew that they had a hit.
Yeah.
So I remember the Temptations coming to Baltimore, and they were sharp.
Yes.
I also remember we had these programs or convocations just before the Christmas break, and I remember sitting in the stands in the gymnasium and singing to Nat King Cole's Christmas songs, and everybody's holding hands. It was a real togetherness that I don't see at some of the other colleges
Yeah.
that you get at a black college.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, not overly big. The size of New Bedford High School, 3,000. So there's a chance to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went to a huge school like University of Miami or something where there's 20,000 kids, 20,000 kids, you'd be lucky, let's face it, 20,000 kids. 4 years you might not see,
Everyone.
kid.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, being small, intimate, it makes for for everyone to get to know one another.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's where the close knit comes in, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
the brotherhood, all intertwined with the fraternities. Back in 1988, at SMU, not UMass Dartmouth, they started the first chapter of Iota Phi Theta.
Oh, I remember.
They came in 1988. It was the first black. It was the first black chapter that came in 1988 and started. Unless you went to UMass Amherst, you wouldn't have known about it. But there were a number of individuals from this area who went to UMass, and what they did was they brought the chapter, and they started a chapter here, which is very good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I had some notes about this. One of the Divine Nine, a fraternity at Howard University, which was started around 1914, Phi Beta Sigma, has a connection to New Bedford because one of the founders was a guy from New Bedford.
Really?
Oh, really?
His name was Leonard Morse. I was doing some research and I found this out, and I was surprised. He graduated, I think, from Howard in 1914, and he was the first in the history of the school to receive 2 degrees in 3 years.
Wow.
And he went on to get a degree in theology and some other degrees, metaphysics. But he was from New Bedford. He went to, I believe, the high school, because when I graduated from the high school, it was the one on County Street.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
And that school was built in 1910, but students didn't occupy it until 1912. So where it used to be the County Academy, the old building, I don't know if it's Holy Family's there now.
Yeah.
That a lot was where the old high school was before this one on County Street.
Mhm.
So I believe that that's where he went. But it also said that he was the valedictorian of his class.
Mm.
And there's very few African Americans that were in high school in those years. So I have to do further research on him, um, if it was in fact New Bedford High School, because I don't think there were any other high schools there. I don't even know when Volk started, but it said he went to an integrated high school at the time. And this is like
Mhm.
early 1900s.
Wow.
So
Great history, more roots. Yeah, I've been to a Howard homecoming.
you have.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's
The drum line
unlike
and
anything you've ever seen. So
Mhm.
the thing for me was watching at halftime of the homecoming game, the bands, the battle of the bands.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You just
The majorettes.
yes,
Yep.
yes, man, they are so man. It's like I said, that's something that you never see around here.
Hmm.
And to have people like I said who look like you, listen to the same music and doing it on a huge field, because let's face it, you know, we don't have that here. But going out to Atlanta and watching them do it at that level, and then watching one school come on and then another school come on, it was eye popping. It was eye
The
popping.
marching bands.
Yes, it was great.
Hmm.
You know,
Great.
when the years at Morgan, they had a football team that was ranked second in the nation, and they went to a bowl game and won it. But of that team, there's at least 10 guys that went on into the NFL.
Really?
They're probably names you won't know, but because it goes back a little ways. But one of the guys is Raymond Chester. He played for the Oakland Raiders. He was a tight end. Another guy was John Fuqua. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. My first roommate in college was a guy named George Knox. He played with the New York Jets. There was another guy, Daryl Johnson, who played with the Patriots.
Mm.
Someone else was Carlton Dabney, played with the Atlanta Falcons. Jeffrey Queen played with the San Diego Chargers. Mark Washington played with the Dallas Cowboys. He was a cornerback. These guys, and some of them played like 10 years, but this is from 65, so maybe they played up to 75 or the miracle catch with Franco Harris. I mean,
Yep.
Yep.
that would hit off of Fuqua, bounced off of him.
Oh yeah, and,
and then he
Franco,
caught it.
yes, caught it. Yes.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yes.
One of my students, Bobby Pius, I had him at Roosevelt, I think 1969. And then he played basketball for me, and he ran track and football as well. He became a detective in Pittsburgh, and he became friends with Franco Harris.
Mm.
And he talked to John Fuqua, one of the guys that,
Oh,
that I
nice.
graduated with. Yeah.
Nice.
Network.
Yeah.
Network.
So we have another viewer that you may know, Kwame Samori. He says, "Hi Ron, I'm watching from Dallas, Texas. It's great
Oh.
to see and hear your story." He went to an HBC at Durham College. It opened his world then in 1979.
Yeah. Kwame is when I went to the 1996 Olympics to see Cape Verde compete for the first time, we stayed at his house, my son and I, and he was gracious enough to let us stay there, and we would walk to the Olympic Games, the stadium that was there. So how you doing, Kwame?
Yes.
Glad to hear.
You have another person, Tony Marie Spencer. She's saying, "Good morning. This is
Oh.
Tony, enjoying the show. Ronnie is our family historian."
Oh.
Tony. I should say that Tony is, she was a principal at East Providence High. And I think the first principal of color at that school, she'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. She's now retired, yes.
Yeah.
The picture you have up there is Howard University. And number 35.
Yes.
And on the first row second from the left going in. I can't read his number there. It might be 23.
23. Yes.
Those are the Mello brothers. That's Tiny Mello and Egidio. They started, I think, in maybe in 1969. They went to college, maybe 69 and 70.
Mm-hmm.
But they played on the Howard University team.
Nice.
Nice. Nice.
We have Jeffrey Career over here.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Yeah. He said great man, track and field athlete.
Yeah.
He said it must run through the blood. Laugh
He
out
was
loud.
he was a great athlete, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And he's related too.
Yeah, he said
Related.
family right there. Cousin Ron.
Yeah. So
A
this
lot
is,
of love.
this is the great thing about having internet radio.
Mhm.
I know he's somewhere on the road. He's probably fool. Where you at? He's probably somewhere down south. But this is the great thing with internet. You
Yeah.
can reach you. Of course, we've had Dallas. We have people, that lives out in LA. There he is, right there.
Yeah, where you at, fool?
He's chiming in right there. Okay, let's see what he has. It says, very brilliant man. Always a pleasure talking to him. I felt I always learned something, even if it was small talk. Always had a story to tell about our own culture.
Ooh,
Thank you, Jeff.
nice.
Yep. So he's in Maine, heading to North Carolina at the moment.
All right.
All right. Safe travels,
Yes.
fool. Safe travels, fool.
So I'm excited for this fair
Yes.
Monday.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Um,
Where is it at again? For the if anyone is just tuned in, you want to give the
yes. So it's. Go ahead. You can.
MLK. Okay, so HBCU College Fair. It is free admission for everyone, so make sure to come down Monday, January 15th on MLK Day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Andrea McCoy Recreation Center on Hillman Street. And Zeitarian Performing Arts Center
Is hosting.
is hosting this.
Yes.
T.
yes.
Blair, you all know her well.
Yes. So we will. The radio station. We have one of our podcasting teams, which she is included of.
Yes.
They're
Okay.
called the Woman of Luxury Tax. Going to be there, along with many other of our staff here.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to be there, and representing the HBCU fair
Yes.
on Monday.
And also Drumline is going to make a performance.
Yes.
Oh yes, that's at 12:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there'll be Q&A with them, and the Drumline will be doing
it'll
the
be-
cast of Drumline will be there doing Q&A and doing a halftime show.
Yeah, so we'll get some performances there.
Yes.
Get a feel for Black University.
Mm-hmm.
and college.
That seals the deal right there.
Yeah.
Right when that halftime. That's
So, they were here. The Drumline was here last year as well, right? Correct. Over at the Zeitarian. They were
Yes,
here
yep,
last
yep.
year as well.
yep, with
remember.
the Zeitarian. Yes, they were.
I wanted to mention a couple of performances that I saw at Morgan. During the time that I was there, the Duke Ellington Band came and they performed. And I didn't know it at the time, but Paul Gonsalves, who was a saxophonist, Cape Verdean saxophonist, was there in the auditorium performing. But I didn't even know that he was part of Duke Ellington's band at the time. Another performance, we had Muhammad Ali came and spoke, and his was really nice to see him, to meet him.
So he had already
spoke-
converted. He was already Muhammad
Yes,
Ali, not
he was-
Cassius Clay.
yeah.
Okay.
I think I don't remember the exact year that he converted, but when he won the championship from Sonny Liston,
Yes.
which might have been 1963 or 62 or something around then. After he won it, then he converted and he
Yes.
told the
Yes.
people then.
Yes.
And for several years, sports reporters refused to call him
acknowledge
by.
yes,
Mhm.
his Muslim
Ali.
name. Yes.
But to listen to him speak, and I remember a lot of students crowding the stage, and even when he walked out, and he had to stop and ask everybody to 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 give him room so that he could move. But I also saw Nina Simone,
Ooh.
and it was really something to see her because she came to the stage, and the auditorium is pretty large, so some people were whispering and talking and stuff, and she stood at the front of the stage, and she wanted it complete silence, and everybody is telling everybody to be quiet, and maybe it took like 30 seconds to a minute, and she just stood there, and when she got it quiet, she slowly walked to the piano, and then she started.
Ooh.
It was. I wish that I had my camera. I wish that
Mhm.
I have very few pictures from college as it is, but some of the experiences. Um, we had art shows. We had a library that had an African collection of art, artifacts as well as art,
Mhm.
and I had never seen some of those things before. This is, as I said, 1965, 66. So to see these objects and to be proud of our heritage and to know more about it is important, and you'll find that at the HBCUs, any one of them. I have two grandsons. I have six grandchildren. Two of them are in Texas. One of them is at Prairie View, and I did a little research about enrollments in HBCUs.
Mhm.
Morgan State is ranked seventh. Howard University is ninth. But I know that Howard has been a university for a long time. It has a law school. It has a lot of different departments, perhaps much more than Morgan does.
Yeah.
But the third largest HBCU is Prairie View, which is in Texas.
Mhm.
And my granddaughter, uh, Samara, is there. And I went to visit her a couple of months ago, and I was impressed with Prairie View. It's a big campus. I think it has 9,000 students, 9 or 10,000,
Mhm. Mhm. Wow.
and it's a beautiful campus. It's one of the prettiest that I've seen. So
That's nice.
yeah,
Very nice.
It's
Eh,
good. It's good to see that. Uh, well, for you,
mhm.
it's good to see that not only your children but your children's children going on and experience in the HBCUs. Um, when you talk about it, you have quite a lot in common. She could say, Papa, well, we did this, and you could say, well, when I was there, we did, it. And then your daughter could say, well, when I was there, and it's all in the family.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
one big, large circle coming
Yeah.
right
my
back
my
around.
daughter Barika, that was at Bennett, she went through some of the same things that I went through which was 30 years before her. Because she told me that she ran into the same thing with her name being Barboza and people wanting to know, about her and her heritage and well, Cape Verdean. So it still exists today.
Mhm.
And one of the when I arrived at Morgan, uh, my parents brought me, and my brother Ken was there while he was going into senior year in high school. Um, and I remember the freshmen were there maybe a week before, so they had these sort of get-togethers where you could meet other freshmen. Before I even met a friend or made a friend, my mother and my father, there's a word in Creole, they're very morab, they're very friendly. They made friends before I even,
What you did.
and then that friend that they made became a friend of mine. We ran
Mhm.
track together.
Yeah.
But it was such a nice thing. And one of the things I didn't realize that I got accepted to Morgan, and when I arrived, I thought I was in the dormitory, and I realized I don't have a room. So the dean gave me a list of approved homes,
Mhm.
and so I lived off campus for 2 years.
Wow.
And I used to walk to school, which was almost 2 miles. And now you have backpacks. Back then, backpacks were not popular.
Mm.
And when I was in Boy Scouts, we called them knapsacks. But so it was common for people to have briefcases.
Yeah.
So I remember buying a green briefcase and carrying that, and then I couldn't fit all my books in it. I had to carry some of them under my arm, and I would walk this boulevard for 2 miles, and there was a teacher that was the head of the library, and he lived someplace further away, and every morning he would pick up as many students as he could to fit in this car to bring them to school.
Oh.
He became a good friend. His name was Mr. Fisher,
Wow.
and he was a lieutenant in the Second World War, I remember. And at the time, my father, there's a researcher or historian named Norman Arujo.
Mm-hmm.
He did his doctorate at Harvard, the first doctorate done on Cape Verde in America. And he had a book. My father bought a copy of the book, bought me 2 copies. And I read that book and learned more about Cape Verde. And we donated one of the books to the library at Morgan, so it's in the library there today.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So we have somebody else who's commented. Do you know an Antonia Rodriguez?
And yeah, I know.
Well, she's saying you're doing a good job, and she said that's your aunt Antonia.
Yeah, that's my aunt. That's right. She's in Brockton. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then somebody also is giving you kudos, Stephen Barboza.
That's my brother,
There
Steve.
you go.
Yes.
There you
I have
go.
7 brothers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
He is
7.
one of 8.
Oh, what
8
is
boys.
it?
8 boys, all boys.
Oh, wow. All boys.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if I mentioned that.
No.
Or maybe I did mention about having my 4 children as students and 4 brothers
As students.
as students as well.
Oh, yes.
I one thing that I'm proud of is that I taught 35 years. I
Mhm.
spent 5 years at Roosevelt and then 30 years at New Bedford High. And I'm estimating, I don't have an exact figure, but I estimate that I've had 39,000 students
Wow.
in the years that I taught.
That's
So I run into a lot of students, and sometimes I think the older students maybe 73, 74, maybe the oldest students.
wow.
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 But I run into
Looking good.
I run into them all the time, and you know, when you're a student, hopefully as an adult you don't change that much,
Mhm.
but you go through changes if you're 16 and now you're 50.
Mhm.
So some people I won't recognize,
Yeah.
or I forget names because all those, not just being students that number, but I sold Fuller Brush for 30 something years part time, and the people that I know about Cape Verde. So I'll forget a lot of names,
Mhm.
but it's a good connection, and I'm proud of the years that I taught.
Yeah.
Because when I first started teaching, there was only the 3 other people of color on the secondary school level, and I was the youngest one, and I probably looked kind of radical because I had this big afro. And I don't know how many inches my afro was, and so
Mhm.
So we've got one up there right now.
that's Miss Harper.
Miss Harper. Yes.
Yeah. Miss Harper was taught typing at New Bedford High, and I think she started maybe when I was a junior, maybe 1963 or I'm not sure the exact year, but I think she taught at Kenyon Campbell first, and then she became a teacher, and then she became a housemaster,
Yes.
house mistress,
Yes.
and so I was underneath her in the Blue House. She was a great teacher and a great administrator. And she had she has a sister, Miss Shepherdson, who was a principal at an elementary school. I want to go back to the things about black teachers, because I think there's a
Mm.
teacher named Elizabeth Carter Brooks.
Oh, Carter School.
Yeah, I think I don't know much about her, but I believe that she taught years ago, and I think she was a person of color. And then there might have been some. Um, I mean, after '69, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there are more teachers of color in the school system now.
Hmm.
But still, there's not enough. You know, and that we have some principalships. I know that. Miss Rodrigues was a principal, Herb Waters was principal, and Barbara Pereira, principal. My aunt Jean Barrows was a teacher for years. So it's
We also have one in Vogue, Wally Williams.
Wally Williams. I don't know
Yes.
him. Yeah.
He's the principal at Vogue Tech.
Well,
Oh,
there's
really?
Guy Shepherdson that his mother was a principal at the elementary school, and he's, I don't know if he was assistant headmaster or something at Vogue. I don't know if he's still there. Uh,
Yeah, Wally Williams is he's the top he's the head principal at Vogue.
Yeah.
Yep. I believe 2 or 3 years in.
Yeah.
He was over at Keith. He was the principal over there at Keith
Mm.
for a while, and then from Keith he went to Vogue. So that's where he currently resides now at Vogue. So yes. So there is more, but we
Yep,
need more.
yep.
yeah,
We
yeah.
need
Absolutely need more.
we need more. Um, it you know it doesn't hurt. Like I said, if anybody's watching, um, and you may think that your kids are going to be going to college, it doesn't hurt to come down to the fair on Monday.
Yeah.
Give it a look. I mean it's free.
Yeah.
You come down, they're gonna have a drumline performance. There's gonna be free pizza. There'll be a lot of intriguing people to meet, who are going to give you some very informative information. So it would, come down and bring your children, and you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
The photo there is Kenny Soers. He's
Yes.
a little younger than me, but he went to Tuskegee. He graduated from Tuskegee
Oh.
Institute. And matter of fact, talking about Tuskegee, when I was at Morgan, Lionel Richie's, I'm trying to think of the name of his group.
Commodore?
Commodore.
Commodores, they came to Morgan. I think he was young at the time, and they performed in the gymnasium, the Commodores. But Kenny and also Lenny Ramus attended Tuskegee Institute. Kenny played baseball there, and I think he told me he had a record of 10-3, and I think they won the championship.
Didn't he coach at New Bedford High?
Yeah, he was the softball coach.
Yes,
Mm.
I was going to say. I'm looking at the
Feel like
face.
he
and I'm
looks
like,
so-
yes.
You know, when you
Familiar.
speak of coaching, the research I've done, the first coach of color in a school system was a guy named Johnny Freitas, and he coached at Holy Family in the 1930s. The Gomes family, which is Geach Gomes and Jake Gomes and Reggie, that family, the mother side of the family is a Freitas. And Johnny Freitas played, he went to Fairhaven High School. He was a quarterback, and they had games against, or football games against New Bedford Volk, which was Geach's team. And he went on to Boston College,
Mm.
and he started at quarterback at Boston College in the 1930s. I think 1934 he graduated, and he was kind of light skinned. People didn't know that he was a person of color because you didn't have black quarterbacks at
No,
a
no,
school like Boston College back
not
then.
at all.
But he's the first coach, and we had very few black coaches. When I started coaching at the high school girls track, I think that I was the first Cape Verdean coach in the city, in the school system, as a head coach. But I'm glad to see that there are more coaches now. You're coaching now, too,
Yes,
right?
I'm currently the freshman coach at Dartmouth High.
Yeah.
Yep, assistant to the varsity as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good. It's
Yeah.
good. Once you listen, the old adage: if you do something that you love, it's not work, right?
Exactly.
It's not,
Exactly.
and I've always wanted to get into the coaching thing, but my career that I had in corrections didn't allow me because I always managed to be on second shift. Once I was getting ready to get off second shift, I got promoted to sergeant. So it was like,
Mhm,
12
mhm.
years in, and I got to get a promotion, and then I go, and then I'm right back on second shift. So yeah, it's good. It's a good feeling, as a
Yep.
teacher, you see kids grow and they go off, and they come and they come back to you. Just last year was my inaugural year. I get to see how the kids are blossoming now,
Mhm.
as sophomores, just to see the amount of change from one year to the next is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The growth, and their ability and what they've learned from one year to next. Um, and there's no better feeling that when they tell you, I went and I worked on what you told me to work on,
Mm.
and you see it. You planted that seed and you watch it, and now it's there. There's no better feeling than that.
Yeah,
Yes.
when you receive compliments about teaching or coaching, I run into somebody and they'll tell me, "Oh, you were a great teacher." It means a lot.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
It
absolutely.
means a lot to me to hear somebody say that. It's a good feeling.
Yeah,
And I
it is.
and coaching, and I've had some students that ran track for me that were not really runners, but they were throwers, like javelin thrower, and they did the running as well because I put them in running events too. And now they continue to run in 5Ks, and they said, I
Mhm.
really got to appreciate running, and they kept up with it.
And they enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a lot of gratification, and when like you say, when you teach someone and then they come back and they compliment you for it.
I
Yeah.
want to give a compliment to some of the coaches that are on the youth level, because one guy that I ran track with at the high school, Tony Esteves,
Yes,
he's coached a lot of youth, and Toy
years,
Toy
years.
Forts,
Toy
who did
Forge, yes.
the
Tonka
gymnastics,
tumblers.
the tumblers, and sometimes they don't get enough credit. Uh, and those guys are the ones that, and girls that built or planted that seed
Mhm.
in some of
Absolutely,
these,
at a very young
and then
age.
they
Mm.
become stars at the high school.
Great
Yes,
point.
But it started with people like that.
at a very young age. And let me tell you something. Um, if you ever happen to be a coach or an instructor, with kids at an early age, it takes a lot of
Yep.
patience.
Oh yeah.
It takes a special human being. There's a lot of patience,
Mhm.
as opposed to a kid that's middle age or in high school, because they can understand it.
Yeah.
It's patience, repetitiveness, patience, repetitive, and you got to have. It's a special person,
Mhm.
and yeah, definitely kudos to them,
Mm.
because like you said, they plant a seed and you watch it sprout, and then before you know it, blossoms and it becomes into a full-fledged athlete. That's really good. Tony, Toy, yes.
Mm.
Those are great guys.
Yep.
We could talk about there's there's a lot of guys in the community.
Mhm.
Robbie Mendes,
Mhm.
what he's done for the Boys and Girls Club, for all those years. Um, they deserve their flowers.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
that's
deserve their
true.
flowers.
Giving
Definitely
back.
deserve their flowers. Because it's not easy, especially in today's time. The kids are very different. The kids are very different.
Mhm.
Um,
The distractions now
yes,
that
yes.
we didn't
The
have before.
mobile, the mobile, the mobile phones, the mobile, the tablets and everything like that. It's a totally different time. And like even when we were in quarantine,
Mm.
a lot of people, they didn't give a lot of credit to teachers, But when they had to spend a month at home with their kids,
They're like, excuse me.
they're like, wait a
Yeah.
second, how you know?
Start
Hey, these
appreciating.
teachers are great. These teachers are great. Give the teachers anything they want. Give
Yeah.
them what they want.
Yeah.
You know, because you never know until you're in that person's shoes. And yes, this it's a great thing. It's you know, to see people doing it for as long as they have, and to still see them doing it,
Yeah.
and to have the same passion that they had from day one leading into year 35.
Mm.
That's, to me, that's unmatched.
Yeah.
It's unmatched. It is. Because let's face it, you know, when you do things over repetitive and it's easy to get disinterested, right?
Yep.
Right.
But when you can, like I said, show the same type of passion from day one to year 35, and show that enthusiasm, that's a special person.
You know, coaches, when you speak about coaches, I had a coach in college. His name was Ed Hurt, or Coach Hurt, we called him. He was one of the coaches in the 1960 Olympics. And that's where Bob Hayes, I don't know if you know Bob Hayes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He played for the Dallas Cowboys, and he revolutionized the wide receivers position. But he went to Florida A&M, what they call FAMU.
FAMU.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this coach Hurt, when I arrived at Morgan and we're walking through the campus, my parents and me, I see this Hurt gymnasium. That's where the phys ed department is. And I'm saying, that's the coach. And this is 1965. The building was done in 1960. I think he had been at Morgan since 1939. And he's still there, and they got the gym named after him.
Oh wow.
It's quite a thing. And then I did some research on him, that he was a quarterback for Howard University, I think in 1914 or 1919. I don't remember which year it was, but going way back. And then he taught at Morgan, continued to teach
Mm-hmm.
and coach. You know.
Carry on.
And
Very
you know,
rewarding.
One other thing I want to mention is that most of my professors at, I think not all of them, maybe one or two, they were all people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And where I came from, New Bedford, and didn't see that, and then to see these professors of color in historically black colleges that had their doctorates and master's degrees, it has an effect upon you.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change your view.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What you know you're capable
it's
of.
inspirational.
Yeah.
You know? So
So
I think that's one of the biggest takes you can get from that too. How, you know, you only know what you know. So being in those spaces where you see people like you in those seats, and, you know, controlling that and running and being in these power seats, I'll call them, you know, it makes you, I think it motivates you or inspires you to do more, because you can.
yeah,
You know?
it does inspire you. Like, I remember talking to Coach Hurt, and he had his bachelor's from Howard, but then he went on to Columbia University in New York to get his master's. And I pulled out my handbook from 1965. I still found it. I keep everything anyway. But some of the things that I didn't know, I look back and I see there's a professor there from Spelman. I never heard of Spelman before when I was at Morgan, and other professors. And I looked at some of the years. Somebody that started in Morgan in 1930. An interesting thing. One of the assistant coaches, because I was a long jumper in college, and there was a coach from India. His name was Dr. Rajana, and he helped me in the long jump, and in this CIAA championship. We were part of this conference. We unexpectedly won the CIAA, and I placed second in the long jump in that meet. And then the next week, or several weeks later, I went to the IC4As where Calvin Hill. Do you remember Calvin Hill?
running back for Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I jumped against him, and he jumped 25 feet. I couldn't believe it, because this guy is like 6'2" or 6'3", maybe 240 pounds,
Someone so big.
and so big, and he didn't have a lot of spring. He didn't get up in the air that much, but he had such strength in his legs. He went across.
Glide.
Yeah, and he jumped 25 something. He won the IC4As. Then he entered in the triple jump. And there's different marks that you can take off for in the triple jump if you decide you're going to take off from the second mark. Whatever mark he took off from, he jumped out of the pit.
Oh, Jesus.
So what they had to do is they had to come out and they had to dig up more of the pit for him. And he won the triple jump too. And shortly after he won this IC4As, because it was toward the end of the year, he signed with the Dallas Cowboys. And then I began to see him on TV. And I said, oh, this is the guy that I jumped against.
Wow.
Calvin Hill. And then he had a son that played
Grant
in
Hill.
the NBA.
Grant Hill.
Yeah, Grant Hill.
Grant. I know Grant. He married Tamia. Yes.
It's the R&B singer. Yes.
I know Grant.
Yes.
Grant Hill.
But I want to mention too that you mentioned School Days, which was Spike Lee.
Yes.
But Spike Lee is probably his most famous movie, Do the Right Thing.
The right thing. Yeah.
The poster in Do the Right Thing, that's my brother's photograph. And the photograph.
I get it. I was gonna get it.
Keep that. Go ahead. Speak.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
keep talking. So the photograph and do the right thing. Your
photograph,
brother.
More Better Blues is his as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a movie poster for the Mighty Quinn with Denzel Washington.
Wow.
You have it.
And the slave, right?
Yeah, and the slave. He's
We're
done a
looking
lot
at
of
that.
albums.
It's this one right here.
Those are some
hopefully your brother's still watching.
timeless posters and
Yeah, that's it.
photography that your brother did.
So hopefully your brother's still watching. Right there.
And he told me that he got in the crane to shoot this.
Up top.
And because Spike Lee is shorter,
Oh yeah,
he had to shoot him separately.
yeah,
to make him
Oh,
look
no way.
larger.
He's a little guy. He's a
Yeah.
little guy. And this one as well. Right here. I'll try to get the glare off of it. But yes,
Yeah.
this is all
Can I
done
see
by
these?
New Bedford's own.
Yep.
Mm.
See,
I've got tons, as you can see.
you
the
have so
studio.
many.
Yeah.
I have tons
There's
of
one that he did.
albums. You know, I did not know. You just enlightened me on something. I did not know the Spike Lee one was his.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
And he did it, shot it from a crane.
Yes.
Oh.
He's got a lot of album covers.
So-
A lot of album covers. Feeble Bryson, I think.
Keyboard Bryson.
Peebo.
Um, I know a lot of musicians that he photographed, but I don't know if he's done some of their covers. I know Aretha Franklin is one of his covers.
Oh.
Roberta Flack.
Butterfly.
Killing me softly.
Yeah.
So you have more family chiming in. Letitia
Oh yeah.
saying, "Hey, Uncle Ronnie." See, so yeah, you know the power of internet is great.
T. Blair.
Yes, she
Yeah.
chimed in, and we also have where was it? Somebody wanted to know where it was at. Okay, Bella DeSantos. Please, where is the event? I am interested to go. Let her know.
All right, Bella. So I'm going to read it down, and then you can also go on the Zeitarian Performing Arts Facebook or the WMB1 Facebook to find this flyer. But it's HBCU College Fair, Monday, January 15th, MLK Day from 11 to 2 at the Andrea McCoy Recreation Center, 181 Hillman Street in New Bedford.
Yes.
Yes, and at 12:30 they will be doing a halftime drumline show live with Q&A. The cast of the drumline will be there
Yes.
performing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's sure to be a great day. As we all know, MLK Day. So there's nothing better than to incorporate on that special day HBCU.
Yes.
They go hand in hand. All right. So hopefully we have a great turnout.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice.
As I said, you know, we as a group, WMB1 Radio, we'll all be there. We'll be there to support it and hope that everything goes off great. Hopefully hopefully, we've touched a few people
Yes.
to bring their kids, and there's nothing wrong with going and looking. The worst thing that could happen is they could actually go,
Mm-hmm,
and that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's not even a bad thing.
Fall in love with the HBC.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, definitely.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to ask questions of people that are there.
Yeah,
There's at least 12 people that will be there to answer questions about particular colleges.
Yep.
Uh, it's one of the things that when I was a student in elementary school, I was always kind of shy and didn't want to put up my hand, even though I might have known the answer and stuff. So it's good. You may think a question is silly and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
but don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of growth. And
that's it.
sometimes it's the best teacher too.
That's right.
So and-
The old saying, the only dumb question is the one not asked.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, the fair, that's what it's there for. It's there to enlighten you, to give you knowledge, to give you. It's there to be informative, and to let you know everything that's going on with the HBCUs. So we strongly encourage,
Mhm.
if you have children, if you know of anyone that may be getting ready to go to college, mainly juniors and even seniors. There's a lot of seniors that they still may be on the cusp of
Yeah.
not knowing where they're going, where they're going to go. They may be in limbo. Direct them down to the Andre McCoy Center on Monday, and it'll be taking place from 11 till 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And we hope to see everyone there.
Yeah.
Hope to see everyone there.
Yes.
Can I also say that the students that are attending, um, don't be afraid to ask your guidance counselor for some help.
Absolutely.
Ask your guidance counselor to maybe send for some things for you from HBCU, or to tell them that you're interested in attending some of these schools,
Yeah.
and they can be helpful in helping you get into schools.
That is the least they can do, because that is their job.
Mhm.
They're supposed to make you have that transition from the high school life to the college life.
Yeah.
That's part of their job.
And New Bedford High School Guidance Team will be there also. This is for middle school students too, or transfer students, and also mentors. Like I do youth mentor, so we could go too. Maybe the students
Yeah.
can't, but we can pass on this information as
They're never
Mr.
too
Barboza is. Yeah, but we can help mentor and
Yeah.
let the children that we mentor or coach know, if they can't make it, what's out there for them and the opportunities and the importance of this in our culture. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I learned so much today.
Yeah.
I'm not a New Bedford native, so being able to, everything that I always hear about you and beautiful stories, I don't have those. So now I have a story, and
Thank you.
thank you for everything that you shared.
You come
with
from a
us.
city or a high school that has a lot of rich history.
Yes, Wareham High School, we
Wareham High
do.
School.
Yeah.
There's in Wareham High there were 3 valedictorians that were Cape Verdean. 3 women.
Mm-hmm.
One was Vanessa Brittle. And
Yes. Oh,
Vanessa just lost her
yes.
husband. She was a valedictorian of her class.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, prayers and love to them.
Yeah.
That's this weekend.
and I'm trying to think of it escapes me now. There was a woman. She had a doctoral degree in the 1920s. She was related to Lawyer Gomes. She was the top of her class, and she was a valedictorian. And back then, this is before 1920,
Mm-hmm.
the class would go on a trip to Washington, and because she was a person of color, they didn't take her.
No way.
And she ended up with her doctorate. Her name just escapes me right now, but I'll fill it in later.
Yeah, please.
And then there was a third woman that worked with the State Department for years.
Mhm.
that was a valedictorian of Wareham High, and also Wayne Fonts, who was the coach of the
Football coach.
Detroit Lions.
Mhm.
He was part of his years was at Wareham, and part were in Canton, Ohio. His father went to Canton during the Depression, and
Mhm.
my uncle George and a guy named Vasco Pius, the three of them went from the Cape, and they settled and they worked in the steel mills during the Depression. And then he came back, I believe, Wayne Fonts, and his
From Ohio?
brother for a year or two, and then went back and graduated from Canton, Ohio, and then played for, it was called the Jets. It was an AFL team that he played for, and he had a record for the longest run back or something. But he was the head coach. I think one of the, if not the first black head coach in the NFL, Wayne Fonts,
Oof.
and he's from Wareham.
Wareham. See, we're on the map.
Yeah, you are. You are.
All right,
Thank
so we're
you.
we're gonna wrap up. Blair's saying thank you. She's
Uh-huh.
saying thank you. And we're
Thank
gonna
you, Blair.
yes, thank you to all. Thank you for coming and blessing us with your knowledge, your wisdom, and a lot of your history.
Yeah.
Because if anyone knows this guy, he's full of history.
Full of history.
Never-ending history.
Beautiful.
Never-ending historian.
Mhm,
How many times to Cape Verde?
18.
18.
18 times.
And how many books?
Well, I have, there's a number of books, but some of them are limited edition.
Mhm.
But I'm working on a book now about the 50 years of Cape Verde's 50th anniversary, which will be next year.
Yes.
So I'm hoping, and I'll be leaving for Cape Verde in February. I'm going to photograph some more so I can update some of my photographs.
Beautiful.
We'll be waiting. We'll be
Of
looking forward.
course.
We'll be looking forward to this. You'll have to on Facebook, you'll have to look for WMB1 Radio. I'll send you a request, and you can throw all the pictures on there.
Okay.
Yep,
And this
we'll
way,
take it.
the whole the whole Cape Verdean community throughout southeastern Massachusetts and beyond, everyone can see them. Everyone
Okay.
can see.
Thank
'em.
you.
All right. So we're gonna wrap up this
Yes.
show, this great interview. And remember, HBCU
Mhm.
College Fair, free admission and free pizza.
Yes.
Right. Also, there's going to be a performance by Drumline. All right. It all happens on Monday, January 15th, Martin Luther King Day, on from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. That's at the Andre McCoy Rec Center, located at 181 Hillman Street, in the west end of New Bedford.
Yes.
All right. Until then, we're going to replay this, and it'll probably, by the time I'm done editing it, it'll probably come on at around 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all the people who chimed in
Mhm.
on the Restream Facebook. Once again, thank you to Mr. Ronald Barboza and my co-hostess J9.
Thank you.
And we will be back with more good stuff, Mags in the Morning, and other stuff
Absolutely.
right here on WMB1 Radio. Thank you, and we hope everybody has a blessed day.
I would like to introduce.
Okay, let's go.
New Bedford's new online radio station. WMB1 Radio Broadcasting live.